They thought she was just another face in the crowd. Just another black woman to handcuff without question, but when they discovered who she really was, the entire precinct went silent. This isn't just a story about mistaken identity, it's a story about power, justice, and payback. Let me know in the comments section where in the world you are watching from and what time it is. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more intense stories like this. The hallway outside District Attorney Rosa Medina's office was dead silent, except for the heavy steps of two internal affairs officers walking side by side. Behind them, Janelle Carter followed, every nerve in her body still tense from the ordeal just hours earlier. Her face remained composed, but her hands curled into tight fists as she clutched her ruined briefcase, still scratched and dirty from being flung to the street. Inside Medina's office, the blinds were shut and the room dimly lit. She sat behind her desk, flanked by two of the city's top legal advisors. One of them gestured for Janelle to take a seat. "I don't need a seat," Janelle said coldly. "I want action." Medina nodded solemnly. "You'll get it. But we need to be surgical, not explosive. The media's already running with it. 2 million views in less than 3 hours. We can't let this become a distraction from the trial you're working." Janelle raised an eyebrow. "They dragged me off the street like a common criminal, humiliated me, and tossed me in a cell. This isn't about distraction. It's about accountability." The Internal Affairs lead officer, a stern woman named Agent Kira Monette, spoke up. "Ms. Carter, I assure you we've already launched an investigation into Sergeant Ray Bishop and Officer Matt Dunley. They're both on administrative leave until further notice." "Leave?" Janelle scoffed. "That's a vacation. What about suspension without pay? What about an arrest for unlawful detainment? For excessive force?" Monette scribbled a note but didn't answer. Janelle took a deep breath. "If you think I'm backing down because it's inconvenient timing, think again." Medina leaned forward. "No one's asking you to back down. We just need to be smart. They're already trying to spin this." Janelle narrowed her eyes. "Who is?" Medina slid a printed social media post across the desk. It was a photo of Janelle mid-shout, arms restrained, face twisted in fury. The caption read, "Unknown suspect detained after resisting lawful arrest. Sources say she may have ties to anti-police movements. What the hell is this?" Janelle hissed. "Snatching the paper, they're trying to frame it like you were violent," Medina said grimly. "The officers claim you matched a description and refused to cooperate." Janelle shook her head slowly. "That's the narrative they're going with?" Medina looked her straight in the eye. "Unless we hit back harder." Janelle nodded. "Then let's do it." Across town at Precinct 19, the atmosphere was tense. Officer Matt Dunley sat alone in the locker room, his badge placed gently on the bench beside him. His partner, Sergeant Bishop, was in the captain's office getting chewed out. Dunley stared blankly at the lockers, sweat glistening on his forehead. He didn't like how things had gone down. At first, he'd followed orders. That's how rookies survived. But deep down, something had felt off the moment they laid hands on her. "Yo," a fellow officer said, walking in. "Internal Affairs just took Bishop's cruiser for evidence. They're going through the dash cam footage." Dunley swallowed. "And body cam?" The officer nodded. "Everything. They pulled it all." Dunley didn't answer. He was wearing the body cam. And he knew it caught everything, the yelling, the cuffs, the disbelief on Carter's face, even his own hesitance. He thought about deleting the footage, but it was already too late. The chain of custody was in motion, then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We saw the footage. You better get ahead of this before Bishop throws you under the bus." His stomach turned. Meanwhile, back at her office, Janelle was in front of her desk with her sleeves rolled up, a whiteboard covered in scribbles and case files stacked like towers. But it wasn't just legal briefs she was studying, it was evidence about Bishop. Disciplinary records, internal complaints, prior accusations of harassment and misconduct. She'd obtained them through quiet back channels, thanks to a few loyal allies in City Hall. 3 complaints for excessive force, all dismissed, she muttered to herself. 2 for racial profiling. No follow-up. She paused at a 4th document. It was redacted heavily, but the dates and signatures told a story. A civil rights group had filed a motion to review Bishop's conduct in a 2020 traffic stop that ended in a minor's hospitalization. The case was buried. Janelle grabbed her phone. "Marcus, I need a favor," she said when her contact picked up. "I want everything you've got on Bishop, including suppressed complaints." The voice on the other end hesitated. "That's not a small ask." "It wasn't a small humiliation," Janelle replied. "If we don't act now, next time it won't just be me, it'll be another black woman who doesn't have a badge or a courtroom to fight back." She hung up and leaned back in her chair. Her fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the desk. The city's legal circles were buzzing. Her inbox was flooded, judges offering quiet words of support, law school friends demanding justice, and media outlets begging for interviews. But Janelle wasn't ready to speak publicly. Not yet. She needed more than rage. She needed proof. Strategy. Ironclad leverage. She turned to the whiteboard again and drew a line connecting Bishop to a retired lieutenant who had mentored him. That lieutenant had left the force under mysterious circumstances involving a lawsuit that vanished from public record. Another buried secret. She circled the name. "I'm going to bring the whole damn system into the light," she whispered. The next morning, the DA's office was swarming with media. Reporters shoved microphones at anyone in a suit. Protesters gathered across the street, holding up signs, "Stop criminalizing black bodies." And "Justice for Janelle Carter." Inside, Medina stood at the podium during a press conference. "We take misconduct seriously," she declared. "Our office has launched an independent review into the events surrounding Assistant District Attorney Janelle Carter's unlawful detainment. We are working in tandem with internal affairs, and no one will be shielded from accountability." Flashes popped. Reporters fired questions, but Janelle wasn't in the room. She was across the street in an unmarked building, visiting someone who hadn't been seen in public for 5 years. The retired lieutenant sat in a dim apartment, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His hair was gray, his shoulders hunched. "You got guts coming here," he said. Janelle leaned forward. "You trained Bishop. I want to know what you know. The real reason you left." He looked at her with weary eyes. "You don't stop that man with court memos. He plays dirty. Real dirty." Janelle's jaw tightened. "Then I'll play smarter." Cops handcuff the wrong black woman, shaken when they realize she's a prosecutor. Word count, 1,000. The hallway outside District Attorney Rosa Medina's office was dead silent, except for the heavy steps of 2 internal affairs officers walking side by side. Behind them, Janelle Carter followed, every nerve in her body still tense from the ordeal just hours earlier. Her face remained composed, but her hands curled into tight fists as she clutched her ruined briefcase, still scratched and dirty from being flung to the street. Inside Medina's office, the blinds were shut and the room dimly lit. She sat behind her desk, flanked by 2 of the city's top legal advisors. One of them gestured for Janelle to take a seat. "I don't need a seat," Janelle said coldly. "I want action." Medina nodded solemnly. "You'll get it. But we need to be surgical, not explosive. The media's already running with it. 2 million views in less than 3 hours. We can't let this become a distraction from the trial you're working." Janelle raised an eyebrow. "They dragged me off the street like a common criminal, humiliated me, and tossed me in a cell. This isn't about distraction. It's about accountability." The Internal Affairs lead officer, a stern woman named Agent Kira Monette, spoke up. "Ms. Carter, I assure you we've already launched an investigation into Sergeant Ray Bishop and Officer Matt Dunley. They're both on administrative leave until further notice." "Leave?" Janelle scoffed. "That's a vacation. What about suspension without pay? What about an arrest for unlawful detainment? For excessive force?" Monette scribbled a note but didn't answer. Janelle took a deep breath. "If you think I'm backing down because it's inconvenient timing, think again." Medina leaned forward. "No one's asking you to back down. We just need to be smart. They're already trying to spin this." Janelle narrowed her eyes. "Who is?" Medina slid a printed social media post across the desk. It was a photo of Janelle mid-shout, arms restrained, face twisted in fury. The caption read, "Unknown suspect detained after resisting lawful arrest. Sources say she may have ties to anti-police movements." "What the hell is this?" Janelle hissed, snatching the paper. they're trying to frame it like you were violent, Medina said grimly. The officers claim you matched a description and refused to cooperate. Janelle shook her head slowly. That's the narrative they're going with? Medina looked her straight in the eye. Unless we hit back harder. Janelle nodded. Then let's do it. Across town at Precinct 19, the atmosphere was tense. Officer Matt Dunley sat alone in the locker room, his badge placed gently on the bench beside him. His partner, Sergeant Bishop, was in the captain's office getting chewed out. Dunley stared blankly at the lockers, sweat glistening on his forehead. He didn't like how things had gone down. At first, he'd followed orders. That's how rookies survived. But deep down, something had felt off the moment they laid hands on her. Yo, a fellow officer said, walking in. Internal Affairs just took Bishop's cruiser for evidence. They're going through the dash cam footage. Dunley swallowed. And body cam? The officer nodded. Everything. They pulled it all. Dunley didn't answer. He was wearing the body cam. And he knew it caught everything, the yelling, the cuffs, the disbelief on Carter's face, even his own hesitance. He thought about deleting the footage, but it was already too late. The chain of custody was in motion, then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, we saw the footage. You better get ahead of this before Bishop throws you under the bus. His stomach turned. Meanwhile, back at her office, Janelle was in front of her desk with her sleeves rolled up, a whiteboard covered in scribbles and case files stacked like towers. But it wasn't just legal briefs she was studying, it was evidence about Bishop. Disciplinary records, internal complaints, prior accusations of harassment and misconduct. She'd obtained them through quiet back channels, thanks to a few loyal allies in City Hall. 3 complaints for excessive force, all dismissed, she muttered to herself. 2 for racial profiling. No follow-up. She paused at a 4th document. It was redacted heavily, but the dates and signatures told a story. A civil rights group had filed a motion to review Bishop's conduct in a 2020 traffic stop that ended in a minor's hospitalization. The case was buried. Janelle grabbed her phone. Marcus, I need a favor, she said when her contact picked up. I want everything you've got on Bishop, including suppressed complaints. The voice on the other end hesitated. That's not a small ask. It wasn't a small humiliation, Janelle replied. If we don't act now, next time it won't just be me, it'll be another black woman who doesn't have a badge or a courtroom to fight back. She hung up and leaned back in her chair. Her fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the desk. The city's legal circles were buzzing. Her inbox was flooded, judges offering quiet words of support, law school friends demanding justice, and media outlets begging for interviews. But Janelle wasn't ready to speak publicly. Not yet. She needed more than rage. She needed proof. Strategy. Ironclad leverage. She turned to the whiteboard again and drew a line connecting Bishop to a retired lieutenant who had mentored him. That lieutenant had left the force under mysterious circumstances involving a lawsuit that vanished from public record. Another buried secret, she circled the name. I'm going to bring the whole damn system into the light. She whispered. The next morning, the DA's office was swarming with media. Reporters shoved microphones at anyone in a suit. Protesters gathered across the street, holding up signs, "Stop criminalizing black bodies." And justice for Janelle Carter. Inside, Medina stood at the podium during a press conference. We take misconduct seriously, she declared. Our office has launched an independent review into the events surrounding Assistant District Attorney Janelle Carter's unlawful detainment. We are working in tandem with Internal Affairs, and no one will be shielded from accountability. Flashes popped. Reporters fired questions, but Janelle wasn't in the room. She was across the street in an unmarked building, visiting someone who hadn't been seen in public for 5 years. The retired lieutenant sat in a dim apartment, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His hair was gray, his shoulders hunched. You got guts coming here, he said. Janelle leaned forward. You trained Bishop. I want to know what you know. The real reason you left. He looked at her with weary eyes. You don't stop that man with court memos. He plays dirty. Real dirty. Janelle's jaw tightened. Then I'll. The retired lieutenant poured another drink, but Janelle's gaze never wavered. Her phone, set to record, sat inconspicuously between them on the coffee table. She needed more than rumors. She needed a voice, a testimony, something they couldn't dismiss. Tell me, she pressed. You trained Bishop. You know how he operates. The old cop gave a bitter laugh, swirling the liquor. You think this is about one bad bust? Bishop is a wrecking ball with a badge. He's had protection for years. Internal affairs won't touch him unless someone else does first, and even then, only if it's a media firestorm. Janelle leaned in, her voice steady. That's already happening. But I want more than suspension. I want him prosecuted. The lieutenant set his glass down slowly. Then you need to look into Project Watchtower. That's where the real skeletons are. Bishop was part of a special enforcement task force. No oversight. No rules. Just results. Janelle's eyes narrowed. I've never heard of that. You wouldn't. Most don't. It's not written anywhere official. The city used them when they wanted things done fast, clean, and quiet. Drug busts, street cleanups, political favors. Bishop was their golden boy. Where can I find proof? The man chuckled grimly. Only way you'll get it is if someone inside flips. And if you think Bishop's dangerous on the streets, wait until you start poking around his old unit. Janelle reached into her purse and slid a card across the table. If you remember anything useful, call me. I'll protect you. He looked at the card, then back at her. You've got fire, Carter. But you're stepping into a pit full of snakes. I've been bitten before, she replied, rising from her seat. And I always bite back. Back at the precinct, Sergeant Bishop paced like a lion in a cage. The walls of the interrogation room felt too tight, and the silence too loud. Across from him sat Agent Monette from Internal Affairs, her hands clasped calmly, body language unreadable. You've been on this job 15 years, Bishop, she began, sliding a folder toward him. Long enough to know how this works. I followed protocol, Bishop snapped. She matched the suspect description. She resisted arrest. Monette tilted her head. Funny. The body cam says otherwise. So do 3 civilian phones. And Dunley's statement? Let's just say it doesn't support yours. Bishop's jaw tightened. That rookie's soft. He doesn't know what real police work looks like. Monette flipped open the folder. You know what this is? A list of every complaint filed against you since 2011. Excessive force, unlawful search, racial profiling. Some dismissed. Others buried. Allegations, he barked. From criminals. From citizens, she corrected sharply. You've been skating by with just enough cover to stay afloat. But this time, you picked the wrong person. Bishop stood abruptly. This is a witch hunt. No, Monette said coolly, this is justice catching up. Across town, Janelle met with her friend Marcus, a cybersecurity consultant with a gift for finding what wasn't meant to be found. His apartment was a maze of monitors, wires, and humming servers. She stepped inside and handed him a thumb drive. What's this? He asked. The lieutenant said Bishop was part of something called Project Watchtower. I need you to dig. Marcus whistled low. Never heard of it. Which means it's real and deeply buried. I figured, Janelle said. That's why I came to you. He plugged the drive in. This might take time. Any idea where to start? Start with Bishop. And anyone he worked with during 2017 to 2020. Cross-reference with sealed cases, high-priority raids, and internal task forces. Marcus nodded. Give me a few hours. If there's smoke, I'll find the fire. Janelle turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. I want to know if they're watching me. Marcus looked up, suddenly serious. You think they are? I know they are. He turned to a keyboard. I'll sweep your devices. If anyone's tracking you digitally, they'll regret it. As she walked out of the building, Janelle spotted a black SUV parked across the street. The same one she'd seen twice in the last 48 hours. Her instincts buzzed, trained over years of prosecuting gang leaders and dirty politicians. She reached into her jacket, discreetly snapping a photo of the plate with her phone. Then she casually walked away, pretending not to notice the engine rev ever so slightly. she dialed, Detective Malik. I need a favor. A plate run. Quiet. No paperwork. You in trouble? Malik asked. Not yet, she replied. But I'm being followed. Later that night, Marcus called. Got something, he said, voice tense. Project Watchtower was a real initiative, deep in the city's archives. It was shut down after a civil suit in 2020, but someone buried it. Real hush-hush. Who buried it? An internal review board chaired by now Police Commissioner Harold Vance. Janelle's blood froze. Vance was untouchable. The man had built his career on tough-on-crime policies and was hailed as a reformer, despite whispers of corruption. If he was involved, what was Bishop's role? He led several high-risk raids. There's footage, grainy stuff, of him breaching homes without warrants. People got hurt, Janelle. Bad. Some of the suspects were cleared later. Wrong addresses. Bad intel. Her jaw clenched. I need that footage. All of it. It's encrypted, Marcus said. Military grade. But I can get in. Janelle exhaled. Then do it. And one more thing, Marcus added. That SUV you asked about belongs to a shell company owned by a retired cop named Ellis Griggs. Former Watchtower member. She paused. Then this goes deeper than just Bishop. Marcus's voice was quiet. You're damn right it does. At the same time, Officer Dunley sat on a bench at the city pier, nursing a coffee and shaking from nerves. He looked up as a shadow approached. You called me? Janelle said, stepping into the moonlight. He nodded, eyes darting nervously. I need to say something, he muttered. What happened wasn't right. I knew it then, and I know it now. But if I speak up, Bishop will ruin me. Janelle stared at him. He already tried to ruin me. Dunley looked down. I turned my body cam off. Then back on. But for a few seconds, it caught him whispering something. What? He said, these types always talk back. Gotta teach them early. I didn't want to believe it. But now. She pulled out her phone. Will you testify? He hesitated. If I do, I'll need protection. You'll have it, Janelle said firmly. But if we don't stop them now, they'll keep doing this, to someone who doesn't have a title or a badge. Dunley looked her in the eyes and nodded. Okay. I'm in. The city skyline gleamed under a blanket of low-hanging clouds, casting long shadows across the courthouse as Janelle Carter approached its stone steps. Every click of her heels echoed determination. Her overnight work had paid off, Dunley was ready to testify, and Marcus had cracked the first layer of encrypted files from Project Watchtower, but Janelle knew she couldn't act alone. Not now. Not with the weight of corruption creeping into every branch of the justice system. She pushed through the rotating glass doors and made a sharp turn into the lower-level records room, where her longtime ally, Clerk Deshaun Graves, kept his head buried in case files. He looked up and grinned. Don't tell me you're here for another obscure docket. You're gonna drive me to early retirement, Carter. She smiled back but leaned in close, her tone hushed. I need sealed files from 2018, Project Watchtower, related arrests. Any case Bishop touched. I need arrest records, warrants, or lack thereof. Deshaun frowned, rubbing his shaved head. That's above my clearance level. You once got me a deposition buried under a forged court seal, she said pointedly. That was different. That was about a dirty judge. And this is about an entire task force operating above the law. If I don't bring it to light, they'll keep targeting people who look like us. Deshaun stared at her for a long moment. Then nodded slowly. Give me 30 minutes. You didn't get it from me. Back at Marcus's apartment, the air buzzed with tension. His fingers flew across his keyboard, screens flickering with code and command lines. Janelle stood behind him, arms folded, eyes narrowed. He pointed at one screen. This is surveillance footage from a 2018 raid led by Bishop. Look, no warrant entry. They kicked down a door in South Bronx, tackled 2 teens, zip-tied a grandmother. None of them were suspects. All cleared days later. Janelle's chest tightened. And no one filed charges. Worse, Marcus said. The case was sealed. No disciplinary action. Just quietly archived and buried under a web of city bureaucracy. He clicked another folder. There's more. Bishop's unit filed false affidavits. Signed by a now-retired judge. This goes way deeper than I thought. She nodded grimly. We need to package this. Chronological order. Highlight racial bias, unlawful procedures, and cover-ups. I'll present it to the DA's office and drop copies to select journalists, just in case something happens. Marcus paused, turning toward her. They're already on to you. Your phone's been pinged from a tower near Bishop's precinct 5 times today. And that black SUV? It's circling your apartment. I'm not backing down. He exhaled. Then let's make it count. Meanwhile, Officer Dunley stepped into an unmarked van parked off 7th Street. Inside, Agent Monette waited. The van was part of an internal affairs mobile unit, soundproof and secured with jammer signals to block any outside surveillance. You sure you're ready for this? Monette asked, eyes narrowing. Dunley nodded nervously. I saw what he did. What he said. I can't stay quiet. She opened a small recorder. You're about to give an official statement. Any retaliation will back you, but it won't be pretty. Bishop's made powerful friends. He took a deep breath. I don't care. I'm done covering for that man. As Dunley started to recount everything, his first ride along with Bishop, the whispered racial slurs, the aggressive takedowns, the constant bending of rules, Monette leaned forward. Listening intently. The statement was enough to shatter any illusion of Bishop's decorated service record. We'll need corroborating evidence, Monette said. Body cam footage, reports, timestamps. I kept copies, Dunley said, pulling a flash drive from his pocket. I knew this day would come. Back at the courthouse, Janelle sat across from District Attorney Harold DeWitt, a meticulous man known for his obsession with optics and political positioning. He flipped through the file she'd placed in front of him. These are explosive accusations, Janelle, he muttered. They're not accusations. They're facts. Documented abuse of power. Unlawful raids. Racially motivated targeting. And I have an officer willing to testify. DeWitt set the folder down and sighed. You're asking me to go after one of the city's most visible police officers, while we're already under scrutiny. This could light a match under the entire department. Good, she said. Maybe it's time it burns. He stared at her. You know the political blowback would be nuclear. Vance will retaliate. I'm not afraid of Vance, she said coldly. He tapped the file. You go public with this, and you better have every duck in a row. No holes. No doubts. Or they'll bury you in court and turn the narrative on its head. I've spent the last 72 hours making sure there are no holes. I've got testimony. I've got sealed records. I've got video proof. And if you won't take the case, I'll take it to the feds myself. DeWitt nodded slowly, the weight of the decision pressing visibly on him. Let me review everything tonight. I'll get back to you in the morning. Do that, Janelle said, standing. But know this, if anything happens to that witness, or to me, this entire file will be sent to every news outlet in the country. With your name attached to it. At 2:43 a.m., the SUV moved again, parked across the street from Janelle's apartment. It idled silently. Inside were 2 men, both former members of the Watchtower unit. One spoke into a burner phone. She's getting too close, he muttered. The voice on the other end responded coldly. Then shut her down. But make it clean. The man clicked off and loaded a pistol with a silencer. Inside, Janelle sat in the dark, blinds drawn, phone buzzing in her hand. It was Marcus. They're moving. I know, she said. I'm ready. She stood, walked to her closet, and pulled out a small black box. Inside lay a compact Glock 43, fully loaded. Her concealed carry permit sat beneath it. The law was her weapon, but she had backup for when the law failed. She holstered the weapon and stared through the peephole. Let them come. The hallway outside Janelle's apartment was eerily silent. Not even the usual creak of the 3rd floor's aging wood floorboards broke the tension. She stood with her back to the wall beside the door, heart pounding but hands steady. Years of courtroom pressure had taught her composure, but this was no legal debate. This was survival. She peeked through the peephole again, nothing, then, a faint click, Janelle's ears sharpened. The sound came from the stairwell door at the end of the hall. Someone had just bypassed the lock. She moved swiftly and silently, gun drawn, phone tucked in her waistband. Her apartment had one exit. If they were coming in, she'd have to control the timing. She took a breath, then hit the lights. Inside the hallway, two men in black tactical gear froze. One lifted his hand to signal. The other unholstered a suppressed pistol and crept forward. Suddenly, boom, the door to Janelle's apartment flew open, kicked outward with surgical precision. A flower vase shattered against the wall as she emerged low and fast, gun aimed, freeze. She shouted, the leading man flinched, but reflexively raised his weapon. Before he could fire, a loud crack echoed as a bullet slammed into the wall beside his head. He ducked, rolled, and took cover behind a neighbor's trash can. The second man fired wildly. Janelle dived for cover behind the hallway radiator as a bullet chipped concrete just inches from her cheek. Her heart pounded. Her breath came fast, but she kept her mind focused. No panic. No hesitation. From the hallway, one of the men shouted, "Put the weapon down." "You first," she growled, sirens in the distance. Faint but approaching, she wasn't alone. Marcus had triggered the panic button embedded in their backup security protocol, a GPS-linked silent alert sent to IA, the DA's office, and local patrol units. They had maybe 2 minutes. The gunman began to fall back, move. One barked. Janelle fired again, hitting the base of the stairwell's exit door. The metal sparked, forcing one of the men to retreat behind the banister, but before they could escape, red and blue lights lit up the stained glass windows at the end of the hallway. Screech. Tires tore against pavement. Doors slammed. Officers stormed the building. Janelle holstered her weapon and raised her hands immediately. "I'm armed, concealed carry licensed." 2 intruders. They went down the east stairwell. Uniformed cops poured past her, guns raised. "Move. Let's go. Lock the exits." One barked into his radio. She leaned against the wall, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. A familiar face pushed through the crowd, Detective Rhonda Kimball, from Internal Affairs. "What the hell happened?" Kimball asked, stepping beside her. "They came to shut me up," Janelle replied. "But I didn't go quietly." Across town, Marcus was already packing up. Hard drives. Flash drives. Laptop. He loaded them into a tactical backpack as his encrypted phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Yeah." A filtered voice came through. "You're being watched. Trash your backup server. It's been pinged." "Who is this?" Marcus asked, eyes narrowing. The line went dead. Outside his apartment, a black car cruised by slowly. He moved fast, burned the old router, smashed the SIM in his laptop, then bolted down the fire escape just as 2 figures approached his front door. From the alley, he flagged a cab and disappeared into the night. Back at the precinct, the 2 masked men were being processed. One of them was bleeding from the shoulder. Janelle's second shot had clipped him during the retreat. Captain Ruiz stood over them, arms folded. He glanced at the unmasked intruder's ID and raised an eyebrow. "Darius Ford." He muttered. "You used to be NYPD." "Used to be," Ford muttered bitterly, "and your buddy here, Jermaine Cross. Last listed as Watchtower Auxiliary. Fired for misconduct." Ruiz stepped back. "I'm calling Internal Affairs and the DA." Before he could dial, the precinct phones exploded with simultaneous calls. Top brass. Legal counsel. Political offices. Somebody was pulling strings. Ruiz put the phone down slowly. "This goes higher than I thought." Janelle sat in an interrogation room, not as a suspect, but as a witness. Across from her, Agent Monette played back security footage from the hallway. Every move was documented. Every exchange confirmed. "You handled yourself like a pro," Monette said. "We're recommending protective custody." "No," Janelle snapped. "I'm not hiding. I've got court in the morning. And I plan to walk in there and tear this thing wide open." Monette leaned back. "You really think the courts will protect you once the truth's out?" Janelle gave a half-smile. "They won't have a choice." Monette nodded slowly, then handed her a flash drive. "That's Dunley's testimony. Internal memos. Your sealed court records. Use it wisely. Janelle pocketed the drive. I always do. Across the city, Officer Dunley parked in a secluded lot near the Hudson. He checked his mirrors twice. Then got out to meet someone standing near the edge, hood up, phone in hand. You brought it? The figure asked. Dunley handed over a small envelope. Original documents. Time-stamped. Chain of custody's clean. You're doing the right thing, the figure replied. I just want this nightmare to end. The figure nodded. It will. Soon. As Dunley walked back to his car, the figure sent a text with only 4 words, she's ready. Start rolling. The next morning, Janelle stepped into the courthouse with fire in her eyes. She wore a sharp gray suit, heels clicking like war drums against marble floors. Reporters waited outside, flashing cameras and shouting questions, but she moved with laser focus. Inside courtroom 402, a small army of defense attorneys waited, led by none other than James Vance himself. The smug glint in his eyes faltered when he saw her stride in, confident and unflinching. She sat at the prosecutor's table, laid her file down, and looked him dead in the eye. This discovery process is going to be enlightening. He blinked, and for the first time, Vance looked worried. The courtroom buzzed with a quiet but undeniable tension. Janelle could feel it humming in the walls, in the low murmurs exchanged between opposing counsel, and in the way the bailiff's eyes subtly followed her every movement. She knew this wasn't just a hearing anymore, it had become a battlefield. Judge Harmon entered, a towering man with a sharp jawline and a reputation for brooking no nonsense. He took his seat with an authoritative thump of his gavel. Court is now in session. Janelle stood, clearing her throat. Your Honor, before we begin, I'm submitting an amended motion for discovery. New evidence has surfaced, documents, audio recordings, and sworn testimony from a key witness previously unreachable. Vance, seated across the courtroom, leaned back in his chair with a mocking smile. Another Hail Mary, Ms. Wallace. How dramatic. Janelle didn't flinch. We'll let the evidence speak for itself. The judge adjusted his glasses, flipping through the flash drive summary. His brow furrowed. Some serious allegations here, Counselor. Chain of command interference, suppression of exculpatory evidence, and potential jury tampering? Yes, Your Honor, Janelle replied, voice steady. This case is no longer about one defendant. It's about a network, rooted in law enforcement and reinforced by individuals who swore to uphold justice. Gasps rippled through the audience. Judge Harmon set the flash drive aside. Very well. I'll allow the motion. But understand, if this is a stunt, the consequences will be severe. Janelle met his gaze. I understand perfectly, Your Honor. The hearing was postponed, giving her 48 hours to present her findings. It was time to ignite the fire. Outside the courthouse, the streets were swarming with reporters, protesters, and off-duty cops trying to keep the media frenzy contained. The story had cracked the public sphere. Footage from Janelle's apartment building had leaked, edited, yes, but enough to show her defending herself against masked assailants. But behind the curtain, chaos brewed. At the 39th precinct, Captain Ruiz sat with Internal Affairs and Deputy Chief Morrison in a closed-door session. I need to know, Morrison said, tapping the table. How did we get here? 2 ex-officers break into a prosecutor's home. Who greenlit this operation? Ruiz threw up his hands. That's the problem. It wasn't greenlit. There's no paperwork. No logs. No communication on official channels. It's like these guys ghosted their way in. Somebody's protecting them, snapped Kimball, IA's senior agent. Somebody's still on the inside. She placed a printed map on the table. Red dots marked intersections, squad car locations, and cell tower pings. There's a pattern. Unmarked vehicles tailing Janelle for weeks. Officers with lapsed credentials showing up at closed-door hearings. And this. She slid a grainy photo forward. It showed Officer Brandon Keeley, the same one who'd first handcuffed Janelle in the grocery store, meeting with James Vance outside a private golf club in upstate New York. Morrison paled. Keeley's still active duty. And Vance? He's not even part of law enforcement. Not officially, Kimball muttered. But he's running a side operation through Watchtower's shadow units. And our own officers are caught in the web. Ruiz nodded grimly. It's worse than we thought. That night, Janelle and Marcus met in an abandoned parking garage near the water. The place reeked of oil and sea salt, but it was off-grid, no cameras, no eyes. Marcus handed her a new phone and a burner laptop. I decrypted Vance's secondary storage vault. There's enough here to trigger federal indictments. Janelle opened the laptop. Names. Dates. Payoffs. Signatures. Her eyes scanned until one name stopped her cold. L. Harmon. She stiffened. Judge Harmon's name appeared 3 times, in sealed affidavits, authorized financial grants, and a security clearance transfer buried under a falsified nonprofit. Marcus watched her closely. Still think you can trust the system? I don't trust people, she muttered. But I trust leverage. She copied the files onto another flash drive and snapped the laptop shut. We go public tomorrow. Marcus hesitated. You know this won't be clean. They're going to come for us harder. They already tried, Janelle said, pocketing the drive. Next time, they'll regret not finishing the job. Across town, Officer Keeley met with Vance inside a soundproofed warehouse disguised as a shipping depot. We've lost the edge, Vance snarled, pacing like a caged lion. She's got the judge. The DA. The evidence. We're not just risking careers, we're risking prison time. Keeley stayed calm. There's still one play left. She has no idea how far this goes. She thinks she's looking at cops on payroll. She hasn't touched the military contractors. Or the federal pipeline. One leak and the Pentagon comes crashing down on her. Vance stopped. Then we burn her before she can talk. Keeley pulled a file from his bag and slid it across the desk. She's planning to make her case tomorrow at a press briefing. Live stream. Public square. Vance's eyes narrowed. We shut it down. Completely. The following morning, the city awoke to a strange stillness. The air felt charged, electric. A stage had been erected in front of the courthouse steps. Cameras were being set up. Microphones tested. Janelle arrived flanked by internal affairs, assistant DAs, and members of the press. Her presence was commanding, flawless charcoal suit, hair tied back, eyes forward. She was ready to go nuclear, but 10 minutes before the briefing, her phone buzzed. Blocked number. She stepped aside. Answered. The voice on the other end was shaky. Don't do it. Who is this? You've never heard of me, but I've been in those rooms. If you speak today, people die. You're not ready. They're watching. Even now. Janelle's grip tightened. Is that a threat? No. It's a warning. You're playing chess with people who don't blink. Wait 48 hours. Let us finish something. Then expose everything. If you don't, you'll never get the chance again. The line clicked off. She stood still for a moment, caught between fury and doubt. Marcus walked up behind her. You okay? She turned slowly. I don't know. Then say less. And show more. She looked toward the cameras. The crowd. The flashing lights, and she made a decision. Instead of speaking, Janelle stepped to the microphone, stared down the lens of every news camera, and held up a sealed envelope. This, she said, voice calm, contains everything you've ever feared was true, and worse. She placed the envelope in a clear lockbox, latched it, and turned the key in full view. If anything happens to me or my team, the contents of this box will be released to the public. Live. Worldwide. Silence. She stepped away from the mic and walked off the stage without another word. Chaos erupted behind her. Reporters shouted. Police scrambled. And across the city, phones began ringing like alarms. She had just changed the game, and now every player on the board was exposed. The morning after Janelle's silent declaration, the city pulsed with restless energy. News outlets ran segments every hour. Social media exploded with hashtags like hashtag Prosecutor Trap, hashtag Envelope of Truth, and hashtag Janelle Wallace. Some hailed her a hero, others speculated she was bluffing. But one thing was clear, Janelle had flipped the script. Inside the 39th precinct, tension had reached its boiling point. Captain Ruiz slammed his office door shut, glaring at the 3 officers in front of him, Keeley, Morales, and Dent. Each one had been implicated in the files Kimball decrypted, and their faces were taut with fear. Behind closed doors, Internal Affairs had launched a secret internal lockdown. "You lied to me," Ruiz barked. "You used my precinct as a hunting ground." Keely's jaw clenched. "We were following an order that didn't come from you." "Then who?" Ruiz demanded. Keely didn't answer. He just looked past him, into the wall, like he'd already made peace with the fire coming. At that moment, Agent Kimball entered, holding her phone. "They're coming. Feds. Marshals. DOJ." Ruiz blinked. "For who?" She looked straight at Keely. "Everyone with a name in that lockbox. Starting now." Janelle sat in her car outside the courthouse, watching a live feed on her tablet as federal agents stormed the Watchtower private security building. She had barely slept in 24 hours. Her nerves were coiled tight, but she knew there was no turning back. They weren't just aiming to ruin her. They were aiming to erase her. Marcus slid into the passenger seat. "We got a tip. Vance is trying to flee." She looked up. "Where?" "Private airstrip outside Westchester. He's got a G5 on standby." Without hesitation, Janelle started the car. "No backup?" Marcus asked. "There won't be time." He smirked. "I was hoping you'd say that." The Westchester airfield was quiet, too quiet. A thin veil of fog rolled across the tarmac, casting ghostly shadows around the hangars. Janelle pulled in slowly, headlights off. Through the windshield, they saw it, Vance's jet, humming on the runway. Staircase down, cabin lights glowing, a black SUV idled beside it. Janelle parked behind a nearby storage shed. "We split. You take the north side. I'll circle in from the hangar." Marcus loaded his pistol. "We doing this loud or quiet?" Janelle chambered around. "We start quiet. But if it gets loud, don't flinch." She moved like a shadow between the stacks of crates, cutting across the rear hangar with perfect timing. Her heels had been replaced by tactical boots, silent, lethal. Every law class, every court argument, every moment of discipline had led to this. As she approached the tarmac, she saw them, Vance, flanked by two armed men in combat gear, speaking into a satellite phone. "No, she's not bluffing," he said. "The files are real. She's smarter than we thought." He paused, then nodded. "Understood. I'll handle it." He turned and barked at his men. "We wait 10 more minutes. If the pilot isn't here, we take off without him." That's when Janelle made her move. She slid up behind one of the guards and slammed the butt of her gun into his knee. He dropped, gun clattering, and she snatched it midair. The second spun around, but Marcus fired from the shadows, dropping him in one clean shot. Vance froze. Janelle stepped into view, gun trained on his chest. "Don't move." But Vance laughed. "You really think this ends with me? You're not fighting a man, you're fighting a system. You can shoot me, but the web keeps spinning." "Maybe," Janelle said coldly. "But if I burn the spider, the web collapses." Suddenly, Vance lunged. Not for a gun, but a small silver detonator clipped to his belt. Janelle didn't hesitate. She fired twice. Vance crumpled to the ground, blood soaking through his crisp white shirt. Marcus ran up, breathless. "What was that?" She knelt and pried the detonator from his hand. "Remote wipe." He was going to erase something. "We need to move," Marcus said, checking his watch. "The feds will be here in 10. And I'm guessing more of his friends are too." Janelle nodded, grabbing Vance's satchel. Inside, a hard drive, 3 passports, a burner phone, and a sealed envelope labeled for JH. 3 hours later, Janelle stood before the press again, only this time she spoke. "This nation is built on the promise of justice. But today, I reveal the lie beneath the oath." She held up Vance's hard drive. "This contains proof of an illegal surveillance network operated by rogue police officers, private security contractors, and corrupted judicial officials. For years, they targeted civilians, activists, prosecutors, anyone who got too close to the truth." She placed the drive next to the lockbox. "This is no longer about me. It's about every black woman who has been handcuffed for being suspicious. Every voice silenced in court. Every life shattered by systemic abuse." Cameras flashed wildly. The crowd fell silent, and to those who think justice can be buried under threats and fear. Let me make one thing clear, I prosecute systems. I don't just survive, I dismantle. The roar from the crowd was deafening. That evening, in a quiet office in D.C., a man in a navy suit watched the footage. He picked up a phone and dialed. "She went public," he said. "And she's not backing down." A gravelly voice on the other end replied, "Activate contingency." The man paused. "Are you sure?" The voice didn't waver. "If we don't stop her now, the entire operation collapses." He hung up, eyes narrowing as Janelle's face filled the screen. Calm. Unshaken. Dangerous, Janelle returned home that night, expecting calm. Instead, her door was ajar. She drew her weapon. Stepping inside, everything had been tossed, papers shredded, walls marked, furniture overturned. She moved room to room until she reached her bedroom, and froze. On the mirror, scrawled in thick red letters, "You went too far." Then, from behind, she heard a creak. She spun, a figure in a black mask lunged. Janelle fired, the man dropped, she yanked the mask off. Keely, still breathing, barely, his eyes fluttered open. "You don't know what's coming." Then he passed out. Janelle stared, heart pounding. For a moment, the silence was total. And then her phone rang. She answered, a voice she recognized instantly. "The judge, Ms. Wallace." Judge Harmon said slowly, "I think it's time we had a conversation. Privately. Before this storm consumes us all." Janelle didn't reply. She walked to the window, staring at the city lights. The war was only beginning. The downtown courthouse buzzed with a fury unseen in decades. Barricades fenced off the main entrance. Protesters held signs reading "She fights for us and no more shadows." Reporters swarmed every corner, hungry for the ending to the wildfire story that had gripped the nation. Inside, the grand jury had been convened. Federal prosecutors, government watchdogs, and civil rights attorneys filled the upper chamber. On the lower level, flanked by marshals and security, stood every key figure exposed in the files: Detective Keely, Officer Morales, Captain Dent, multiple judges, corporate heads, even city commissioners. Dozens of indictments had already been filed, but everyone waited for one woman. When Janelle Wallace entered the chamber, silence washed over the room. Gone was the black blouse and pencil skirt. She wore a tailored navy suit, sharp and imposing, like she belonged at the top of a military tribunal. Behind her, Marcus walked in carrying the sealed envelope Vance had addressed to her. "Are you ready?" he asked. "No," she said. "But I'm going anyway." Earlier that morning, before the chaos of court, Janelle had met Judge Harmon in an old church on the south side of town. Neutral ground. One way in, one way out. Harmon sat in a third pew, Kane leaning against the edge, his face drawn, hollow. "I should have stopped it," he whispered. "Years ago." She stood in the aisle. "Why didn't you?" "They had something on me. Photos. A dead girl and a bottle." His voice cracked. "I was weak." "You let them bury people like me," Janelle replied coldly. "To save yourself." "I was protecting my daughter." "And how many daughters like me did you sacrifice?" His eyes welled. "I want to testify." She hesitated. "I kept records. Hidden. Safe deposit box. I'll give you everything." "Why now?" He looked up. "Because you didn't die. And because if this ends without justice, we're all damned." Back in court, Janelle approached the federal lead attorney. She handed him the envelope Vance had left, marked for JH. "What's in it?" The attorney asked. "I don't know. But it's his final move. We need to know if he was bluffing." The judge slammed the gavel. "Proceed." Janelle took her place at the podium. Every eye locked on her. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what I bring you is not a single case. It is the untangling of a conspiracy that spans 5 years, 47 false arrests, and the systemic targeting of minorities, especially black professionals, by those sworn to uphold justice." Screens lit up behind her, displaying photos, financial trails, communications intercepted through the decrypted files. Watchtower, the private security firm, didn't just surveil citizens. They worked in tandem with rogue officers to arrest, frame, and silence key community voices. Their purpose? Profit. Promotion. Power. She clicked to another image, a chart linking officials to payouts and forged evidence. Detective Keeley's unit was directly responsible for 28 unlawful arrests. 3 resulted in suicides. 2 in mysterious deaths labeled overdoses. Gasps echoed through the gallery. And what happened when I got too close? When I requested access to a sealed report. She played bodycam footage, the moment Keeley and Morales slammed her onto the squad car, handcuffing her in broad daylight. This, she said, voice steady, is what happens when truth threatens corruption. She let it hang in the air, then, she turned to the final piece, the envelope. I now present to the court, Vance Ridley's final message. The prosecutor opened it. Inside were 3 items: 1, a coded USB drive, 2, a list of 20 names, all judges and officers, some still seated in the very room, 3, a short handwritten note, even spiders fear fire. The courtroom exploded, officers stormed in to arrest 2 sitting judges. The crowd roared in disbelief. One commissioner attempted to flee through a back door but was intercepted. Janelle stood firm, unmoving, as her city turned upside down. Later, in her office, Janelle stared out the window. The sun was setting behind the skyline, painting the buildings gold. Marcus entered quietly, placing a mug of tea beside her. You did it, he said. No, she murmured. We started it. He sat across from her. What now? She exhaled. Now I rebuild. He raised a brow. As what? Prosecutor. She turned from the window. As district attorney. He grinned. You running? No, she said. I've already won. Weeks passed. Dozens of trials began. Every channel covered the sweeping arrests. Congressional hearings were launched. A federal task force was formed to prevent future abuses. The Watchtower security firm was shut down and dismantled. And in the center of it all, Janelle Wallace became a national icon of justice, but she didn't seek the spotlight. She returned to the courtroom, fighting daily for the ones without a voice. One afternoon, a young law intern approached her. I wanted to say thank you, the girl said. I saw you on TV. I want to be like you. Janelle smiled, crouching to eye level. Don't be like me. Be better. Be louder. Be unshakable. The girl nodded, inspired. As she walked away, Marcus leaned in. Legacy. Janelle shrugged. I'm just getting started. On a cold Thursday morning, Janelle walked into the 39th precinct. The same place she'd been handcuffed not long ago. The same squad room that once mocked her now fell silent. She walked past the bullpen, through the glass doors, into the captain's office, now occupied by a black woman in crisp blues and brass stars, Captain Marcia Graves. You're early, Captain Graves said, glancing up with a smile. Janelle extended a hand. Wanted to deliver this in person. She handed over a sealed folder marked Case Transfer Authority, Internal Affairs Joint Task Force. Captain Graves opened it, skimmed the contents, then looked up with wide eyes. You're leading the task force. Appointed yesterday, Janelle confirmed. I'll need your full cooperation. Files, personnel audits, bodycam archives, everything. Graves stood. After what they did to you, you should have burned this place down. Janelle's tone sharpened. Justice isn't revenge. It's restoration. The 2 women shook hands, a silent pact that the old ways had ended. That weekend, Janelle visited her mother's grave. She knelt, brushing away leaves from the headstone. Dr. Audrey Wallace, mother. Mentor. Fighter. I won, Mama, Janelle whispered. Not just the trial. All of it. A breeze stirred the trees as if in answer. Janelle looked up at the sky, eyes clear, voice steady. I'm not scared anymore. They saw who I am. And they'll never forget it. She stood and walked away, not as a victim, not just a survivor, but as the woman who turned chains into power and made the system answer for its sins. Hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more intense stories like this.